Hey, it's Jeff Peoples, Megatrend.ai, and I'm in the process of switching over from software and real estate and helping thousands of companies save billions of dollars and getting more time and money freedom into the investing world. And that's really what I'm doing, because I think that people, when they get more time and money freedom, they become better people. When you're under enormous amount of toil and stress, people do less quality things than if you have more time and money freedom and you can more connect to what I call the God of your understanding. But you know, it's I do this because probably if you guys have seen my last BA presentations, like last time and whatnot, I've always been a deep lover of God, and I'm into this whole time I've been interested in proving God scientifically, and with an organization, and I've been investing in agricultural products where blessed agriculture actually produces measurably better agricultural products. You know, without double-blind scientific studies, you can go on to NIH, whatever, and you can see that a enlightened being can put a higher consciousness into an amoeba or a bacteria or any living organism, as a matter of fact, or
so
none.
What sectors are you now investing into?
Yeah, so I'm an AI and robotics, exponential technologies, guys. So I found that, so I did a substantial exit. I started, and I said, look, as opposed to me just, doing well as an investor, I decided that I would take those ownership and put them into funds and let other people invest along with me. And so it makes it so that they have a few things. One is that because I know this industry, I can get access to shares of SpaceX and XAI and other companies like Ripple and whatnot, that most people have no idea how to get them, or and there's bullshit in the industry. You have to understand exactly how you're on the cap table, how you're listed, so that you really get it. You're not diluted. There's all sorts of things, and so I'm good at that. And what I decided was I could avoid the troubles that most people get to when they get a large sum of cash. You get a large sum of cash and you get a target on your back. People are going to try and swindle you. It's just the way it works. I mean, I had, because a lot of these things become public knowledge, it's like this transaction happened, there's a tombstone out there and there's people that watch for tombstones.
The moment I had any success in business, I was suddenly, like everybody all of a sudden wants to do business with you, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, of course, you just want my money.
100%.
Now I have a question for Dan.
Yeah.
Like Dan is a storyteller framework arc guru.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to even say that. Storytelling.
I love it. Yeah, baby.
What would you change about the way he told us what he was going through based on your frameworks to make it more storytelling, more compelling? What would you have done differently? Like, I'm just curious how your brain works.
Yeah, I think what happens is we process information differently.
Yeah.
And I was paralyzed playing football. 14 months, I went to 16 doctors, 15 of whom told me I would never get any better. And in that process of losing my identity, I thought I was a football player, when in reality that's just what I did. It's not who I am as a man. I was given a cassette tape to listen to by a, quote, motivational speaker by the name of Zig Ziglar, and I thought, whoa, his mom ran out of names. I've never heard of him, so out of curiosity, I listened to the tape. And my whole point, to answer your question, bro, is that I was not emotionally available to listen to a doctor's prescription, any kind of scientific saving grace or formula to get better, to recover from my paralysis. But what I was emotionally available to was a story. Facts tell, but stories sell. People don't remember what we say, they remember how we make them feel.
Right.
And so that was the catalyst that I needed for me to respond and believe that I could get things rolling again and start to recover from my injury. So to your point, you're very intellectual, obviously, you're very passionate. If I was going to coach you on speaking from a stage or just being a podcast guest or host, what I would say is you quote the statistics. You teach the truth. This is what I learned. But because you're so smart, individuals like you have a tendency to just keep giving us information and information and information. And what happens is when you say one thing, that triggers in both of us, wow, how does that relate to me? Why is this relevant to me? And so all of a sudden we tune you out, and you're still explaining and giving information while we're in the Bahamas trying to figure out what the hell does this mean to me? And so what happens is when you can put it in the patterns that I teach, where you teach a truth, you validate it with a case study, research data, or a quote. For example, if I was going to teach you to, successful people, significant individuals, that successful people compete against others, significant individuals compete against what we're capable of. It's about self-competition. So to embellish that and validate that, I would say, for example, Einstein said everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its entire life believing it is stupid. So now people think I'm more well-read. It's not my opinion. Einstein backs up the point. But then after you disseminate the information and validate it with a quote or a case study, then you've got to let people figure out what this means to me, and that's when you call time out psychologically and share, for example, and then you give us a story about why you believe that an enlightened soul can produce better in the farmlands, in the fields. Give us an example. And as a matter of fact, let me tell you a story about George, blah, blah, blah. To your point, I have a question to you based on our love of music. So I'm a guitar player, he's a guitar player, and I had a publishing deal with Sony BMG in Nashville all those years. I have some gold records in country music.
Oh, we gotta talk.
So,
yeah.
Congratulations,
so
by the
I
way.
like to ask individuals in every audience, any musicians, there's always a few hands, how many notes are there in music? And most people say 7 because they only count the major notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Right. And I would put them into place saying, Contraire mon frère, in the year 1685, a very famous music composer in Western Europe decides he wants more options. He's the guy that put the black keys on the piano. So if you look at the 88 keys on the keyboard, there are 7 white notes and 5 black notes, a total of 12 notes. What does that have to do with you? Everything. Every song ever written in alternative, in punk rock, in rhythm and blues, in country, in classical, every song ever written was written with the same 12 notes. Right. The only difference between one song and another song is the order in which the 12 notes fall and the timing and spacing in between the notes. Right. So the question of the day is, what's the difference between a hit songwriter and a lousy songwriter when we have access to the same 12 notes? What's the difference between a great banker and a lousy banker that have access to the same interest rates in the same economy? What's the difference between someone putting together these micro funds and someone else who's lousy at it? Yeah. The answer is exactly the same: passion, creativity, and imagination. So now I've gone full circle. Reason leads to conclusions, but it is emotion that leads to action. Yeah. Knowledge is power, but it has no heart. We don't learn to know, we learn to do. All the information in the world isn't going to make a person successful. It's like the guy who has 3 PhDs, one in philosophy, one in psychology, one in sociology. He doesn't have a job, but at least he can explain why. So let me repeat it. Reason leads to conclusions, but it is emotion that leads to action. So now, how do you get people to buy into what you're saying? How do you get people to want to be in your space, to listen to your investment proposal, and actually trust you with that transference of trust enough for me to say, okay, here's $100,000, here's $500,000. It's based on the story that you share, which is social proof. Yeah. So having a hit songwriter and a recording artist who has the right to have a cool haircut, has earned the right to wear his hair any freaking way he wants, and I just crave that opportunity, but I'm too old now. They're like, no, Clark, you're not hip anymore.
You can do it.
But it still boils down to every proposal has to boil down to reason leads to conclusions, but it's emotion that leads to action. You want somebody to pull the trigger on what you're teaching us, interrupt your information with the story so we can let it incubate and percolate and figure out what it means to me.
I actually did that from the stage earlier today, where I was explaining event tracking, which is Greek to most people. They don't know what data modeling event tracking is. And I said, well, we tag everything on the website, and then we track where it goes and how they got there and where they came from, and people are still like, crickets in headlights. So I said, here's an example of where we did that, right? Where I mentioned Torque Fitness, where they had the one CEO was going to kill the YouTube campaign. We said, before you do that, you got to wait. That may not be the thing that's causing revenue to fall. Just because the links aren't getting clicks doesn't mean people aren't seeing those videos. So we tagged the site appropriately to find out if people were coming from those specific URL videos, from those YouTube videos. And it turned out they were. Even though they weren't clicking on the affiliate link in the description, they were actually watching the video. And what it also turned out was that those people had first discovered the brand primarily, on average, on Facebook campaigns. And those people would then go to YouTube to do their research. And then they'd go to the site and they'd peruse around the site, really high intent. The people who went to the site from YouTube were remarketed by Google. And that was where the most amount of purchases came from, was that conversion path. There was other ones. There was email. There was, Facebook to email to a purchase. Most of the highest paying customers and the most revenue that they made came from that attribution path. It was Facebook, YouTube organic, Facebook ads, YouTube organic, Google remarketing. And it, on average, took place over 7 days with 15 touch points. Right? So now we can go to the CFO and we can say, look, like these other campaigns are just not yielding anything, and this isn't how people are discovering your brand to purchase. So this is now wasteful spend, right? And now we can optimize, and then we did. We said we actually turned a campaign off that was a 30x ROAS on connected TV, which is high. It's high ticket gym equipment, so that wasn't that hard to hit, for the record. But the point being is that we had a retargeting campaign, we turned it off, and the CEO is like, what are you doing? You're turning off like this great campaign. It's got 30x ROAS. And we said, well, listen, if this budget goes over here, since we're on a fixed budget, it's going to generate more revenue based on what the data is showing us. And this is a one-off. This is a one-off channel. It's not affecting everything else. If we double down over here, you're going to make more money. And we did that, and he did. So that's the power of the data. But when I just say, yeah, we do event tracking, which does offline conversions, and it allows the CRM to train the algorithms and make them smarter. Like, to his point, it's like information overload, and then I would go to the next thing. The only way I was able to start getting people to get it was to tell them a case study or a story. And I'll follow up with this. We have a client that is raising capital, which is the other side of what I do. And he has an AI roll-up. Now, this is how he explained it to me. He's like, well, it's AI skin detection. It's got attachments to products, and it's got attachments to the providers. So you can basically scan and products and provider and doctors all in one app. And I said, well, I get it, but I don't get it. Like, where would I use that, and who would use that? Like, who's the? It didn't click. And I said, literally, give me an example. Tell me a story. And my kid had just had a really nasty rash on his back, and he said, imagine you had taken a picture of Oliver's back, and it's eczema. And now the AI app will say, well, you took it on this phone, in this lighting, with these settings, it's this skin complexion, it's this skin type, it looks like it's eczema. I'm also detecting things that the human eye can't see. It's detecting a couple other things. It looks like it's eczema and it's dehydration on the skin. We're gonna recommend this Eucerin cream, which, by the way, you can hit add to cart and buy right now. And we're going to send a notice to your provider and your primary to let them know that, like, he's dealing with an outbreak. They're going to call you in the morning. And this AI chatbot is doing all of this right in front of you, and it's going, do you need anything else? And you get prompts to continue to upload photos to see how you're doing.
Right.
Now, this goes for that company. They're targeting first women with Botox, lip injections, med spas, because that's where all the money's at, is in the face. So when he told me this, I said, okay, now I get it. Now, because you gave me a practical example of how and where I would use it, now I get it. And then I said, now who's the target audience? He goes, not the individual med spas, the roll-ups that sell to the med spas. We're going after the big boys, and Procter & Gamble is buying all of our data. And I said, well, why? Because again, I'm like, I don't get it. Why would they be buying your data? He's like, because we fixed something that they couldn't. And he led me on with this, like, I don't even know what to call that in storytelling. It was all this, like, it's not foreshadowing. It was like a lead-in, right? We did something they couldn't. And I said, well, what was that? And he's like, we were able to fix that camera problem. We were also able to identify with the agentic machine learning AI, the different skin issues across a multitude of different types of skin textures, which they could never do, and they couldn't figure it out. And so the point is, now they buy data from them. And that was what I was like, okay, if you have a global conglomerate that can't figure this out, and they're buying from a small startup like you, and your pilot was with Estee Lauder, and you have this AI thing that we can explain in a short story, I think we got some gold here. Mm-hmm. And then lo and behold, like, we put him in front of a private family office for a $50 million raise, and he got an offer, right? But we were able to, I took this really complex thing that he had never figured out how to language, and I, just being the idiot,
now being a songwriter.
Yeah, maybe I give myself not enough credit. Yeah. But I put it down into layman's terms. I said, just give me the example, because I can't understand it otherwise, right? And I think people in marketing, people forget that they have a cognitive bias. Like, they forget that not everybody knows what you know, right? Mm. So if you're selling to like for your investment companies, and you're trying to raise capital, which we see this all the time with the investment decks that we get, people talk in a language that presumes that the people reading the deck are in their space.
Right.
And I said, why would you do that? Like, your strategic investors are going to be at your pre-seed and your seed ranges. When you get into Series A, Series B, you're going after institutional investors that just want to see how it works. And if you're speaking Greek and they can't understand it, they're not going to buy because they don't understand it, no matter what the numbers say. So that would be my only 2 cents.
I remember the most read book. It used to be, I don't know what the 2024, 2025 data is. Most well-read publication was the Reader's Digest, written at the 7th grade reading level to make your point. Right. How long did you speak today when you had the floor in the general session?
I was only supposed to go for 5 minutes, and they kept me up there for like 15.
15, and you were, with all due respect, because you're so articulate, and I was digging your hair and your music background. But the only thing I remember to make my point is the story you just regurgitated about what you did, because that related to me. I immediately said, I need this. This would change everybody, not just a major corporation, but an LLC, a sole proprietor, because you guided us from hello to goodbye on the benefits of what your data.
The revenue attribution modeling,
Yeah, because the rest of the stuff didn't matter. So now back to you, Jeff. What you've been teaching us is so incredibly important, and I love every part of it. But again, I'm saying to myself, relate it to me. How can I actually walk out of here and explain what you just said to my man? And if I can't do that, then it was not communication. There's a difference between talking and teaching. So the goal, like when we create a video, I always tell people your demo video as a professional speaker is a job interview. You've got to be able to answer the questions with the music to draw out the emotion, and just, vaccinate the individuals, the event planners, with just enough of what you're going to bring to the table if they want the whole show. So that's what I would say. You're so articulate, you know what you're talking about. Just figure out, write it down, because you can only edit so every word pays its own way when you have writing, not when a recording. And you say, where could I pause? Where's the natural break in disseminating this amount of information where I can insert a story and give the social proof that he just so perfectly and eloquently explained?
Well, give us now you gotta wrap it up and give us a story.
So how would this benefit with
after doing a substantial exit, getting and investing millions of dollars, and realizing that it's a very small percentage of the dollars that you invest that actually make it. The vast majority of the dollars. So if you were to, so after investing many millions of dollars, I found that it was only about 3 million of the dollars that actually quadrupled and above. All the others went to zero or down 90%. And so what I found is there's certain characteristics that the vast majority of people never are going to have the opportunity to invest those millions of dollars that I did and be able to distill where the money can go. And I just want to be sort of that shepherd, that guide, and saying, hey, look, I'm taking my best investments, my top 5 investments that have made millions of dollars, and putting them into a specialty fund that are part of this characteristic of exponential change. We all know that AI, robotics, new material science, all the things that are coming from the exponential technology changes are going to be the winners. But what we don't always realize is that's going to make many more losers. And what I'm proposing to my friends and family and colleagues is that you don't have to lose all the millions of dollars that I lost by doing bad. You can just piggyback onto the winners that I've done. And so you can take those 10% exponential winners and make it so that you can grow with them because they have the seeds for greatness for years to come in this exponential change. And that's really what I care about, is that without having to go through that kind of experience, that you get the benefit of that experience without the cost.
See, if I was going to coach you as a speaker, I would say, after they introduce you, this is Jeff, I would start right out by saying, a man had a dream, a genie came to him and said, you've lived a noble life, we'll grant you one wish. The man thinks for a moment and he says, I wish that peace and love and prosperity and wealth fill the whole earth. The genie says, that's a noble wish, sir, but we don't deal in fruits here, we only deal in seeds. And in the time I've been given, I want to plant some seeds of greatness that will actually, bring forth the fruits that you want. There's a giant difference between getting what you want and actually wanting what you get, so you don't die with your music still in you. And I've got these micro funds that I've figured out, so you don't have to lose the millions. So you're starting to tell stories now. That relates to me. That immediately triggered in my mind, oh man, he's got the secret sauce. Instead of planting all these seeds in bad soil, why not find the good seeds to plant in good seed in good soil to get the trees and the fruits that I dream about? Does that make sense?
Yeah, for generational wealth.
Same with songwriting. You begin with the hook. It's the hook that sells the song. My buddy Tim Nichols wrote "Live Like You're Dying" for Tim McGraw. My hit songs, "Had I Shot You When I Met You, I'd Be Out of Jail by Now." We got to get that in the.
Jack Black said, "Don't bore us. Get to the chorus."
Yeah.
Now we're talking. Just sing the chorus. And, it's a 20-second song and it's a hit.
The only thing I would leave you with, Jeff, is if you don't have a case study or an example, create a hypothetical.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
So are you a Christian?
Yes.
So we don't know if all of Jesus' parables were true. To your point, make up one that teaches. I believe there was a woman at the well, but I don't know if there were 12 virgins. I have no idea if there was a good Samaritan, but he taught a principle with a story.
Right.
So make up a hypothetical, and it'd be surprising how you could make it funny, evocative, add a quote, emotional, so people remember it. And then you got to bolt because people are was that true? And you got to already be on the bus out of the venue for the next concert tour, baby.